the title, Blessed Are the Peacemakers. And I'm assuming we are all peacemakers, as I get a big smile out of everybody. The verses are Matthew 5:33 to 48. And as I looked at the lesson and looked at, we get the lesson, I get the lesson everybody has, and then there's the teacher lesson, and then there's another lesson, and so you get all three of those. And it said the main idea is a peacemaker must be honest, rejecting retaliation, benevolent, and loving. And I thought about this class, so we don't need to listen to this lesson. All of y'all are honest, rejecting retaliation, benevolent, and loving. Well, and then it said a question to explore. How can I respond with kindness in a situation where I have been mistreated? And I couldn't help but think, Janie and I went this week, Janie's car needed, all it needed, I thought, was to change the oil, which I figured they'd go out and, do that. I used to do that, but, well, we stayed there about, what was it, 7-8 hours?
No.
It kind of felt like that. And there was a couple there, and I'd read the lesson and I was thinking how I was going to be a peacemaker. There was a couple there and they did not speak English. And I thought, well, that's very nice. If any of you had not had your radio or television on, you could have heard them talking. And they, yeah. I mean, they went on and on and on. And I had figured it may take me more than the 15 minutes I thought to change the oil. So I carried a book and I'm reading the book and these people are just jabbering away and I couldn't hear a word. What can I do? I can't even talk to them because I didn't know their language. Well, I thought about the lesson. I was supposed to be kind and all of that. There's still not a lot I could do, but I didn't say anything to them. So that was one situation that at least the lesson was helpful because I didn't throw anything. Now the teaching aim is to lead adults to know that our attitude toward our adversaries changes when we perceive them as persons for whom Christ died. Now if we look at the other folks that way, then don't we look at situations a little bit differently? Now the first series of verses, there's 33 to 37. Now, let me just read those and then we'll divide them up. Again, you have heard that it was said to the people long ago, do not break your oath, but keep the oaths you have made to the Lord. But I tell you, do not swear at all, either by heaven, for it is God's throne, or by the earth, for it is his footstool, or by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. And do not swear by your head, for you cannot make one hair white or black. Simply let your yes be yes, your no, no. Anything beyond this comes from the evil one. You have heard that it is said, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. But I tell you, do not resist an evil person. If someone strikes you on the right cheek, turn to him the other also. Now, as we deal with the lesson entitled, Blessed Are Peacemakers, the teacher's lesson tells us Christians are to be peacemakers. We're to be peacemakers. People who help those who are alienated from God to see how God can change their lives. These changes happen when a person becomes a Christian and is reconciled to live at peace with God and where? With other people. Romans 12:18 says, if it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. Isn't that a good topic for us to be talking about with, if you turned on the news lately and see where the peace is? Our lesson then outlines 4 core values of characteristics to be effective. The lesson outlined with this in mind. The first one is honesty and integrity. Let's look at verse 33. Again, you have heard that it was said to the people long ago, do not break your oath, but keep the oaths you have made to the Lord. Now here Jesus was emphasizing the importance of telling the truth. People were breaking promises and using sacred language caused carelessly. Do you run into that in everyday dealings with others? And I got into that, and I thought back at the time that I was still a trial lawyer. And there was one case that I can clearly remember. The plaintiff had slipped and fell in the client I was representing. It was the store. And she had slipped and fell, and she fell and hurt herself. Now, she was seriously hurt, according to her. And all these different problems that she was having, and I had no way of doing anything about it. The doctor said she was hurt, and, she said she fell. And all I had was, she said earlier that the water that she had fallen in was the width of 2 legal pads, which was about like this. Maybe they'll see that she shouldn't have fallen in that water. The plaintiff's lawyer put her on the stand, and she had all the way through while he was questioning her, she would answer this way. She would never look this way. She would never look that way. She would never bend over. I mean, she had a hard time getting up on the stand, and I thought, oh my goodness, she is really bad off. I was getting ready to tell my client, go ahead and get the checkbook out, because we're going to be paying a big deal on this one. Well, she finished, and all I could do is I said, well, maybe I can get her to show how large that water was on the floor. So I'm going to put the legal pad on the floor and let her stand there, and I don't want her to do anything but say, yes, that's how wide it was. That was the only reason I had her to come down. So I asked her, ma'am, would you please come down here? Oh, yes. She charged down there. I put the thing on the floor. She goes, I mean, she's down on her knees and she couldn't. Well, I knew her lawyer very well, because he and I had a number of cases before. And I looked back at him and he goes, now, how honest was this woman? She was under oath and she had lied. It was obvious that she had lied. Do we ever have that problem ourselves? I don't think we've ever lied that seriously, but do we occasionally lie? Or not lie, but kind of don't tell all the truth. Anyway, that was the verse. Now the second verses was 34 to 36. But I tell you, do not swear at all, either by heaven, for it is God's throne, or by the earth, for it is his footstool, or by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. And do not swear by your head, for you cannot make even one hair white or black. Well, as I was working on that, I said, we're in Sunday school. We are not under oath as we witness, I just mentioned. The lesson tells us that to be honest with people need not swear oaths that something is true, or swear that we do not commit them. Dishonest people lean on oaths and schemes. Now, does that affect us as members of this class? As I look around the room and I see folks I've known for years, I don't think anybody's ever lied to me. I don't think I've lied to anybody. We're truthful with each other, aren't we? So how does that affect us? One of the things I told my clients early in our relationship was, tell the truth, and then you don't have to remember what you said. Now think about that.
Yeah.
If you tell the truth to start with, and then later on somebody questions you, well, remember what you said. You don't have to worry about it. Maybe that's affects us. I think we can talk to each other and tell each other things without oaths because we are Christians. I mean, I can ask me how I feel, and I'll tell you mostly how I feel. But anyway, look at verse 37. Simply let your yes be yes and your no, no. Anything beyond this comes from the evil one. The lesson tells us to keep it simple. Let your yes be yes and your no, no. We do not lie to each other. Now, this is the class that I find that's easy enough because I don't think we're lying, or we do lie to each other. The lesson emphasizes that people want a person whose yes means yes. and whose no means no. Answers like maybe or perhaps I will. Now, where does that run into? Have you ever been asked, will you do so-and-so next Friday night and help me do so-and-so? And you know that there ain't no way next Friday night you can do anything. But, well, I'll think about it. Is that a lie?
Not if you think about it.
Okay, I get it. Good point. Well, I'm thinking about sometimes you just don't answer the way you probably should. I can't do it Friday night because Janie has got me working in the yard. I know. Well, she says she doesn't make me do anything. So. But I may tell someone maybe or perhaps I will because I have not checked what I have to do. Is that wrong? If you ask me, can you help me next week? Well, I'll check and see if I can. If, you know, and that's something that I certainly can do. And I'm not lying about it. But if you say, will you help me next week, next Tuesday afternoon to do so-and-so, and I know that Janie has already lined me up to be out of town that day. And I said, well, I'll think about it. What have I done?
That's a lie.
That's kind of, okay. Well, I was just trying to think of some of these situations. Maybe or perhaps I will because I have not checked. If I'm honest, the problem seems to me that I tell someone I will do something and do not attempt to follow up, then that's wrong. And maybe we ought to think about that. I'm sure none of y'all have that problem. And maybe in my past, I'll keep that one. Verse 38, you have heard that it is said an eye for an eye or a tooth for a tooth. What is Jesus saying to us today? Are there people out there who do awful things to us? Are there people out there who lie about us, lead others to dislike us when they tell things which are untrue about us? Are there things that happen to us by others which make us want to retaliate? Have you ever had someone do that to you? Janie and I had one man do it. I was handling a case, and we were gone for the weekend, and we came home, and we had left the van at the house, and when I got back, the tires of the van were slashed. And the van was painted with things on it. The windows were messed up. They painted on the side of our home, on the door. And then fortunately, he was real thoughtful. He had a barrel or a can of oil, and he poured it on the patio by the swimming pool. Now, I guess he really could have poured it in the swimming pool and really made it bad. So there we were. What in the world? Well, then come find out that Janie had gotten a couple of phone calls, and she took them as just crank calls. That developed into something that lasted a whole year. This guy filed a lawsuit, wanted a lot of money, threatened, and this thing went on and on and on. He called the president of the insurance company that I was representing and said, I'm asking you to come down to Tallahassee, play me a round of golf, give me 6 strokes, and if I win, you pay me the amount of money he wanted. And if you win, then I don't get anything. I mean, it lasted. We ended up with a guard on the back of the house. We had someone in a little shed behind us, and the guard was there during the day and at night. And then we had them across the street in the woods that were protecting us from that. One night, I shouldn't go into all this, but our bedroom in the back didn't have a door. And I thought, if this character were to try to get in the house and we're back there, we'd have to knock a window out for us to get out. So I started sleeping in the living room because there was a door, and we put the little lights outside,
Motion.
motion lights. And I'm sitting there about 1 o'clock in the night, in the morning, and I look up and the light comes on. The light comes on. I said, what is it?
Yeah.
So I get up and I go to the door. You know, we had glass up at the top of the door, and I look. Here comes a little deer. Anyway, we got through it, and they didn't kill us, and he ended up decided he didn't like Tallahassee, and he moved to California, so hopefully he's still out there. We haven't tried it again, but.
He did go to jail for 30 days.
Well, he did go to jail for a little while, but that was life. Anyway, but in the verse 39, but I tell you, do not resist an evil person. If someone strikes you on the right cheek, turn to him the other also. We find Jesus told his followers not to retaliate, but instead turn the other cheek. Christians are overcome knee-jerk retaliations. Peacemakers de-escalate situations, not escalate them. When someone does something against us which is wrong, what is our response?
This seems hard to do. If someone struck me, I would either leave or fight back, it
Yeah.
seems like.
What is this verse saying? Do not resist an evil person. If someone strikes you on the right cheek, turn the other to him also. How do we handle that? It's been a long time since I got in a fight. I mean, I was a teenager, and so every once in a while I'd say something, But how many times have someone struck us, not physically struck us, but have done something to us that way? How do we respond? Or are we to respond?
I think Jesus is trying to tell us to be different.
Yeah.
He says, normally, if somebody hits you or takes your shirt away, whatever, you're gonna jump on them.
You're gonna respond.
And do an eye for an eye.
Yeah.
Or retaliate in kind. And he said, but you be different from that. You don't do that. If somebody wants you
Yeah.
to share, give them your coat too.
Yeah.
If they slap you, turn your.
Don't slap them back.
Don't slap them back.
Yeah.
And put some space between you and other party.
Yeah.
Kind of get into a different situation, remove yourself from that situation, if you can.
Have you ever been involved in a situation where that came up and ultimately something good came from it?
Yeah.
I think we probably have. And when that happens, it's very, then you can think about this verse, can't you? But it's as easy. Somebody, and we're not gonna get slapped, I don't think, not now, but somebody that does something bad to you, what's your first reaction, I should say, not your first response, but what's your first reaction? Retaliate. And what does this say? Do not resist an evil person. If someone strikes you on the right cheek, turn to the other.
He's also telling you're stronger than you think you are.
Yes.
You have a strength that other people don't,
Right.
and so you can handle it.
What does that say to that person? And I'm using the word strike, but it may be that they call you something, or they may do something that harms you. What are you saying to that person if you try to reconcile something there? Do you think they might ever say, why in the world would he say that? Why would he do that? Would that give us an opportunity to tell why we are responding as the scripture says?
Yeah.
Now, if anybody's got a good example of that, I know we've all gone through situations over our lifetime that comes up. But isn't it somewhat difficult? I mean, I wanted to throw something at these characters the other day that had to making so much noise I couldn't read. But they didn't know I was reading. They were sitting over there. All All right, peacemakers are benevolent and generous. Christians, far from retaliating blow for blow, are to go beyond even very kind ways to responding. Jesus expects Christians to turn the other cheek and treat people better than they have treated you. Be generous and giving. Jesus gives two more examples of generous, benevolent response. The verse is verse 40. If someone wants to sue you and take your tunic, let him take your coat as well. How many of you ever had that? I'm not asking you how many of you have ever been sued. If you've ever been sued, that's fun too. But is this verse really about lawsuits? Having practiced law, I don't think it is, maybe, but I spent many years dealing with those. Many have real purposes for which they are filed. What about the lawsuit? Is that legal from a Christian standpoint? Pardon?
I do not believe in lawsuits.
Okay. Can you file a legitimate Christian lawsuit?
Law is the law.
The law is the law. You're riding down the road in your car, in your lane of traffic, and somebody whips over and runs into you. And it breaks your leg. And you lose total control of the leg. And you have to go to the hospital, and you're in the hospital for 6 months. Is there a legitimate reason to file a lawsuit?
Yes.
Thank goodness for insurance, right? I don't know. It's something to bring up. One of the things that I found is at the very end of the time I was trying cases was we had a very serious case, and we had about 5 different defendants. And one of the defendants was from Michigan, and he came down and he said, let's all get together and see if we can't mediate this thing. And I said, what are you talking about? Because we'd never heard of mediation at that point. He said, what that means is we all get together and we talk about it and see if we can resolve it. Well, I thought that sounded like a pretty good idea. And we did. All 5 of us got together. The ones that had filed the lawsuit, the ones that were being sued, and we sat down and we talked about it and we settled it and we got rid of it without having to go to trial.
Peacemaker.
There was the peacemaker. That's the reason I thought this was a good lesson, the peacemaker part of it. And then at that point, later on, I started mediating full time. And by the time I left Florida, you almost had to have a mediation before you could get a trial date. And it was amazing how many cases were settled because of mediation. And what we did with mediation was you would sit down, this person has filed a lawsuit, this person has been injured. This person has been sued, they don't think they did anything wrong. So I sit down with this one in a room by themselves, we talk about it, we talk about what could happen and what needs to be done. You go to the other room, you get them all together, and you try to get them together and get it resolved. Sometimes you could do it. Sometimes you couldn't. I think the longest one I ever had, we finished up at 2 o'clock in the morning. And I was afraid they were gonna shoot me, but anyway, isn't that appropriate where you actually try to resolve it? Because what you have to do there is and I'm the plaintiff in the case, I have to look at the defense side. Now what is he saying? Maybe he's got a point. And the defendant on his side says, well, maybe the plaintiff has a point. Maybe there's some kind of compromise we can come to. Is that something you think that Christ would be in favor of? I hope so. And if someone wants to sue you and take your tunic, let him take your cloak as well. And this verse really are lawsuits. I spent many years, that's what we just talked about. If someone forces you to go 1 mile, go with him 2 miles. Give to the one who asks you, and do not turn away from the one who wants to borrow from you. Now, the lesson said, whoever, usually Roman occupying soldier, forces you to carry his trunk for 1 mile, carry it 2 miles. Most Jews would carry a Roman soldier's baggage exactly 1 mile, throw it down, and spit on it. Jesus wants the Christian to be generous and giving like God is to us. He is always giving more than we ask to receive. Make friends instead of enemies. Show that we Christians are extraordinary people. Now, what really does that mean for us today? How are we to deal with those who are taking advantage of us? How do we deal with them? I'll tell you, that situation that we were dealing with for a year, it was tough to deal with the other guy. Because we didn't know what he was going to do. But this would be saying that we were supposed to try. And I'm not going to go into all the background of it, but that was something. Does that offer you an advantage to show that you care for that person? How do you care for somebody that's taking advantage of you?
Through a lot of prayer.
Yeah.
That's it.
Really.
And sometimes that's all you can do, isn't
Yeah.
it? That's, in the situation with this guy, that was all I could do, really, for a
All
long
we can
time.
really do is what we ourselves believe,
Right.
not what they believe.
And not what they believe, you know. So you have to deal with that, and that's not easy, is it? Now, peacemakers love others. Have you heard that it is said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy? Is that an easy one?
Give the rest of it.
No, that's all I'm going to read right now. Love your neighbor and hate your enemy. Wouldn't it be nice if it just, that's it?
Yeah.
I love all of y'all. There's some folks that I really hate. I don't think we can quit there, though.
No.
Leviticus 19:18 says, do not seek revenge or bear a grudge against one of your people, but love your neighbor as yourself and the Lord. The law taught the Jews they were to love their neighbors, but ignore or treat as non-existent their enemies. Jesus said God expects more of Christians. People who want to be peacemakers must reveal God's nature and kindness to all people. Isn't that difficult? It's asking us to do something that's not real easy, is it? But have you ever done it?
Bill,
Yes, ma'am.
I had a situation at Publix. I guess the DEI anyway, the person taking out my groceries, he was terrible. And he complained and he griped and he just tried to take my card away from me. And so I was trying my best to avoid him. And I started feeling guilty about it. I thought, well, so the next time I saw him, one time I saw him, he was doing the same thing. And I said, smile, make you feel better. And he said, well, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden he just went, and he had the nicest smile I've ever seen. So from now on, I just tell him how great he smiles.
Yeah.
Oh.
And what was the response to that?
See,
I mean,
Yeah.
good.
isn't that what we're talking about?
Yes, exactly.
You responded to his,
Now, if he didn't come back and could do better, I would say it's Publix's fault for hiring him. And I would still avoid him.
you don't have to go to him
Bad.
anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Jesus said God expects more of Christians, people who want to be peacemakers and must reveal God's nature and be kindness to all people. That's a tough one, isn't it? Be kind to all people. You ever played football?
No.
Be kind to the other team. Actually, I was in a small school and we were in a small county, a small area, and the teams we played all the time, and we played them in baseball and football and basketball and ran track, and we got to know them real well, and In fact, one of them was on the other team, and I spent the night with him one night. He invited me to a party over in his place. And then I played him another later on in a football game, and he's over there I'm quarterback, and I'm looking, and he's right there. I'm gonna get you, you know. But he didn't. But it was those situations where you have a chance to be a friend with the other person and to deal with that other side.
Tell what his mother said when you spent the night, when, you ran the ball all the way down and then tackled you on the 1 yard line or something. And the next morning, the mother said, I felt so sorry for that little boy that.
You would have to tell that.
That was a cute story.
I mean, we played this team and they beat the tar out of us. And we played them out of town, and so after the game, they split us up and we went to these people's house, and I intercepted a pass. I mean, not often when I do something good like that, but I intercepted the thing, and I'm over here and I ran like and I get down on the 1 yard line, this guy knocked me down. Well, the next morning, we're sitting there at breakfast, and Mama says, you know, I felt so sorry for that little boy that caught that pass, and you tackled him on the 1 yard line. Lady, you don't know how bad I felt.
You said I was the boy.
I was the little boy. I've tried to forget that one. Verses 44 to 45. But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, that you may be sons of your Father in heaven. He causes his sun to rise on the evil and the good, and sends rain on the righteous and unrighteous. This is a difficult assignment for us. We are to love those who persecute us. Now think about that. How do we say that? And then we've talked about it. We're supposed to love those who are persecuting us. We're supposed to love those who hate us and give us a hard time. How did Jesus do that? What did Jesus say on the cross? And this is the one that kind of really gets to you, doesn't it? How badly have we ever been persecuted? Have we ever been persecuted like Jesus was persecuted? And what was his response?
Forgive them, Lord.
Lord, Luke 23:34, forgive them, for they do not know what they're doing. And where did he say that?
On the cross.
He was on the cross. Now that was a very difficult point for him to say that, but that's the kind that he was talking about. Maybe we should think back when someone does something to us and we're angry with them for what they said or did. Maybe the thing to do is to think back to what Jesus did on the cross as he read it in Luke and the above verses. Never have we faced anything like that. And that's how he responded. Will it be easy to even like those people? Is it easy to like somebody that hates you and is giving you a hard time?
You don't have to like it.
You don't have to like them. But you're not supposed to hate them, are you? Will it be easy to even like those persons? Just maybe. Though if we pray for them and ask God to direct us, we can see a miracle in a way that we can deal with a difficult assignment. Have you ever made up a relationship with somebody that you thought hated you or you hated them? I think we have over our lives. If we look back at those times that we've had somebody oppose us and end up actually kind of liking us and liking them. Now, the fourth section is model loving behavior, verses 46 and 48. If you love those who love you, what reward will you get? Or or not even the tax collectors doing that. And if you greet only your brothers, what are you doing more than others? Do not even pagans do that? Be perfect, therefore, as your heavenly Father is perfect. Now, what kind of a demand is that? Be perfect. I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand, but if I did, how many of us would? Well, I was perfect. We are to reveal the love of God in us to everyone. It's not enough to just love people who love us or like us. Non-Christians do that. If we're only friendly to people who are just like us, what's extraordinary about that? I like what the lesson tells us. Therefore, in order to show extraordinary beauty and love Jesus, we are to be perfect as was he. The meaning of the word perfect in the Greek does not parallel with the English, what the English word means. It does not mean the flawless or sinless, although God certainly is flawless and sinless. The Greek word perfect means complete, consistent, and mature in attitudes and actions. We are to be examples of exemplary, mature, loving beings who are generous and kind in valuing and blessing others. This week I have looked through some old Bibles that we've had in our house, and I found my grandma's Bible. Now, my grandmother passed away in 1957. I was not very old. I remember her well. And in that Bible, she had this note. And it said, whether we acknowledge it or not, every Christian is God's steward. A steward is one entrusted with the management of an estate or of affairs, not his own. Hence, one who manages or disperses for another. Christian stewardship is acknowledging that God is the rightful owner of ourselves, and if all we can call ours, and that all we are or have is to be used under his direction for his glory. Not all stewards, not all our stewards, are faithful. On the other hand, all happy, useful, consecrated stewards are faithful. 1 Corinthians 4:2. Since we have received far more from God, those than we deserve, let us be faithful with all that he has allowed us to have. Now that was in her Bible, and I saved it, and I thought maybe that was a good ending of the lesson. Anybody have anything to add? Disagree with?
I find out as I progress through life, if you pray for someone, you can't hate them.
If you pray for someone, you can't hate them.
And you see now politics, what it's doing to families, and it's terrible. That's not God's way.
No. And it causes you peace when you do that, doesn't it? Anybody else? That's such a great point. Thank you.
Good.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I appreciate you being here. Hope you have a good week. Doyle will be teaching next week. Nancy is not going to be able to be here because of Ken. But let's all be here to support Nancy, to support Doyle, and I hope you have a good week. So let's close. Father, thank you for what you have taught us, what you're teaching us, that we're to love those who don't love us, that we're to respond properly when someone is against us. Help us to love others as you love us. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Good.